At the end of the day, I mean, when you're dealing with business to business sales or developing those relationships, you want to do business with people that you like. You want to do business with people that are pleasant, people you can trust, and I
Yep.
think that's kind of the culture that Mike's really created at Great Lakes Stainless. Our whole team is like that. I mean, not everybody's as great as Mike and I are, but they're all right.
Welcome to Verify Infield, the Millwork podcast. Your host, Jacob Edmond, CEO of Ductworks, will be interviewing experts in the industry to bring you insights and knowledge about the latest trends, techniques, and challenges in millwork. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the world of millwork. Here's Jacob.
Good morning, guys. Today we have Michael DeBry. Did I pronounce that right? And Travis Dolloway today from Great Lakes Stainless up in the Great Lakes area. You guys are in Michigan, is that correct?
Correct.
Did I get that right? All right, awesome. So Michael is with us. He's the president and owner of Great Lakes Stainless, and we've got Travis as well, who does business development for them. And we met at a couple of the AWI events, the Spring Leadership originally in Pittsburgh this year, and then again at in Phoenix at the annual convention. So I appreciate you guys taking time out to come and talk with me and join the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So just to get started, can you give a little bit of background just about Great Lakes Stainless, how the two of you, a little bit about each of your backgrounds, how you got into Great Lakes Stainless in the industry, and then how Great Lakes got into the millwork industry?
Sure. So the company was started back around 1995, and it was started primarily, the first 10, 15 years was heavily into food service, doing food service work. So
Okay.
serving counters, work tables, hot sinks, and things like that. So as part of that, the serving counters, there was a lot of millwork that went along with them. They all have millwork fronts and things like that, but all stainless cabinet base or, steel and stainless frames on the other side. So that's where the Great Lakes Stainless came in. That's where our introduction to millwork, kind of came in too. So we were doing millwork. So for a long time, we had a partner that we outsourced all the millwork to. When they did that for us. And then around 2012, through a series of events, we brought the millwork in-house and started doing that just mainly for our own products and things like that. So we did do some of that. At the same time, we started tracking. We were kind of able to identify some different market areas and business areas we were doing our business in. So we started tracking that for a couple of years, and so then we could track our margins, for all these different business areas, food service, or whether we're working directly for a GC or whether we're just making parts, like for OEM manufacturers who are making original equipment. We do a fair amount of that work too, and so working with that data, one thing that Travis really pulled out of there is, hey, we got this little segment of work where we have not only decent margins, but mainly the customers just seemed thrilled to find us.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, thank goodness. So, I think, when was that, Travis? Back in, I think it was around 2017?
2017, late 2017, early 2018.
Yeah. So Travis put a bunch of work in, and, with our millwork shop, we had joined the AWI, but so he started putting together mailing lists. We had a shop tour years ago for one of the AWI. Spring Leadership was in Traverse City when Tyler was president, and we were the shop tour that they had. So we had some AWI folks come through. So, we were in a period of where our sales were a little low, and we weren't quite quote unquote ready to launch our market into this millwork category. But sales were low. I'm like, man, Travis, we need some business. So I said, go, and Travis, you take over from there.
Yeah. So, we'd identified that area as, what we thought could be a very valuable area to do work in. And I went through the AWI member list and sent out email after email after email, just introducing us what we do and what we're trying to do. And the response was pretty overwhelming. I mean, it was between a 25 and 30% response rate on everything that I had sent out. As far as getting bid opportunities, some companies, that had metals in their package that had no idea what they were going to do with them, had a budgeted number, were ready to buys. So it was pretty lucrative, especially right at the very start, as far as the response that we got, which was, very nice for us to see and just encourage further growth in that area.
Right. So
I mean, I think we had our first PO in like 4 hours or something like that, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, the sales cycle is so much longer than that most of the time.
Yeah. So historically, you guys, obviously we're doing stainless and food service and stuff, and a lot of, I would imagine, kind of spec driven work, right? Where, hey,
Right.
the GC's buying, they've got to go get food service from somebody, and you're just kind of bidding against other food service suppliers, I assume, right?
Correct.
And it sounds like you kind of stumbled upon the other divisions, which is millwork, right? That also end up having metal in their scope, but it's outside of the normal divisions you're working in, right? And in addition to that, it seems like you stumbled into it in a way of like, there was a huge need because millwork manufacturers are also constantly trying to find good metal fabricators, right? Good metal partners. And not just people that are capable of doing the work, but people that are able to kind of collaborate with them, because it integrates a lot of it, I imagine, integrates with their millwork pieces, and you're having to either, make a top that goes on their reception desk, or, wrap some panels, or, kind of make stuff that is more creative than your typical metal fabricator a lot of times, right? So it sounds like you also in that stumbled upon, hey, there's a bunch of shops that were just like, wow, we really need a good partner, and right time, kind of right place, I guess, as well as you guys probably, I mean, Travis, I guess, tell us a little bit about your background and what drove you to take that approach of, hey, let me just cold email a bunch of people, right? Because that's, a common playbook thing, but not something
Right.
that we see in our industry a lot, right?
Right, exactly. So my background, I started with Great Lakes Stainless in 2014, and I actually I've been a welder my whole life. And so
Okay.
I started on the shop floor building these food service counters, everything else that went with it. And eventually into the estimating world, we had our estimating manager at the time was getting ready to retire. And so for whatever reason, Michael and Dan, our VP, thought it'd be a good idea to bring me into the estimating world. So just from there, just kind of progressed, got into more of a sales role, and then just more overall business development. So that's kind of my history with the company, which is nice
Mhm.
because I have an understanding of how things actually get built,
Yeah.
what it takes to actually do it, and have kind of a fabricator's perspective on things. But as far as the approach, with targeting kind of the millwork industry was, we'd had some success with a couple other former clients that we had that, needed blackened steel panels or stainless steel panels for their millwork scope. And that kind of opened us up to that possibility. And so we started looking into it more. And like I say, with the spring leadership conference, touring the shop and everything like that, it just, all the pieces were there. We just needed a way to put them together.
Yeah.
We figured the best and quickest way to do that was just find all the millworkers and let them know who we are and what we do. Like I say, it's kind of, about as old school of an approach as you can get, but it was fairly successful.
No, that's awesome. I think that's a lot of people probably think, hey, there's some magic to it, but it really was like, you guys, okay, let's go creatively find the people. We see a part of our business that is profitable, is opportunity, and let's chase after more of it. And it really isn't, I guess, any more complicated than that, other than just to do the work, right?
Yeah.
Something
correct.
else I want to point out, like you guys, you two in particular, right, are two of the most fun guys at those conferences that I've had. I mean, you guys did a great video. And something I want to ask you guys from your perspective is kind of insiders but outsiders to the rest of the audience there, right? I'm putting you on the spot in a tough spot, but is that like, are you guys the norm for the metal industry and we're just a bunch of boring guys in the millwork? Or do you find that that's just you guys' personality together at Great Lakes Stainless?
Good question.
I don't know. We just hang out with woodworkers, so I don't know about any of the other metalworkers.
Oh, okay. No, I think that if I were to infer, I think that that's probably also a lot of the opportunity you guys got is people meet you guys and say, hey, we want to work with these guys. Obviously, you do great work, but you both are fun guys to work with. You're obviously going to be very organized and honest and great to work with. But it's always fun hanging out with you guys, and I imagine that helps you guys get opportunities. I don't know if you find that to be true, but I would imagine that's a piece of it.
I think
Travis does a great job with that. So
at the end of the day, I mean, when you're dealing with business to business sales or developing those relationships, you want to do business with people that you like. You want to do business with people that are pleasant, people you can trust, and I think that's kind of the culture that Mike's really created at Great Lakes Stainless. Our whole team is like that. I mean, not everybody's as great as Mike and I are, but they're all right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think even like the ad you guys did, the video spot you did at this conference, which I think AWI shared online, that was a great example because in this industry, I think a lot of people are kind of, would be nervous to put themselves out there and do something like that everybody finds funny, right? But it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm putting this out there in the public. And in business development, I guess the bigger message is it is kind of being vulnerable and putting yourself out there is really what you're doing every day in sales and business development to some extent, right? It also, like you mentioned, is the relationship. And I think a lot of people listening, who are probably thinking like, how do I get more business? Like, what am I doing wrong? What is the formula? And it really is just kind of these core basics of, be likable, be good to work with, put in the work. Like, hey, you're cold emailing all these people and following up with them and finding what is the market you're trying to go after, and then targeting it. And I think those are a lot of the simple core things that you guys have done really well. That is making up that formula for success to some extent, right? It's kind of simpler than a lot of people want to make it out to be, but doesn't necessarily mean it's easy to be good at what you do, be good to work with, and put in that time and work, right?
Absolutely. If there's a magic bullet, I haven't found it yet.
Awesome. So then you mentioned early on, you guys joined AWI, which I imagine was another, kind of, hey, let's try this. And we see an opportunity here, but we don't know where it'll go. How has that been for you guys? I mean, you guys go to the biannual conferences. It sounds like you've had people come for a shop tour. What has your experience been with AWI overall?
It's been very positive. I mean, the content at both the spring leadership and the annual event is just top notch. So regardless of the business opportunities, of which they are also ample for a customer of us in that market, I mean, the conferences would be worth it just for the content, and everything else. But you add in the networking and the ability, we come back and really work hard at implementing some of the stuff we learn at each one of those conferences each year. So overall, that's, it's just been great. It's a really well-run organization, I serve on the COC, I always call it the Chamber of Secrets, but the Chapter Officers Council, that's what it is.
Okay. Did you join that about the time you said you started to take millwork in because there was a time, I don't know, maybe I missed you said this, but you used to outsource the woodworking part of some of the products you did, right? And at some point you brought that in-house and started doing that internally. Was that about the time you started looking into joining AWI, or?
That's when we joined AWI, but I didn't get active and involved until 2020, because that was my spring leadership in March of 2020 was my very first conference event. And so, but I definitely started to get involved, and we were starting to get involved with our local chapter first. Travis had started to go to some of their annual events and things like that. Then I went into that national thing, and then I just ended up keeping involved. Now I serve as president of the Great Lakes chapter here, which is a great, really really great chapter. I think we got a really active and involved board, and
Yeah.
a good membership. So overall, it's just been an extremely positive experience all around. Well, I can say.
Does anything like AWI exist specific to the metal industry?
Travis
Similar,
can speak to
yes.
that.
So we're also members of NOMA, which is National Ornamental and Miscellaneous Metals Association.
Okay.
We've only been members of it for about a year. I actually serve on their membership committee and attended their national event last year in Oklahoma City, and planning on attending in Nashville again this January. It's similar, but with it's a much smaller industry, it seems like. There's obviously way more millworkers than there are metal workers. And the metalworking side is, man, it is the Wild West compared to the woodworking side.
Yeah.
It was great to see like a lot of the fabricators and the work they do, because it's so different from what we do. There's guys that do like wrought iron gates and fences, forging and things like that. And so it's a really, really wide spectrum of metal workers out there. The cohesiveness that you see in AWI isn't quite there, but they're working on things and trying to, develop those standards and things like that I think would be good for the industry. But it's,
Right.
I think their challenge right now is just, it's such a wide variety of word and very few fabricators out there. So there are,
and from
it's not quite
yeah,
even.
and from what you've told me, like most of the ornamental metal fabricators are just of a much smaller scale.
Well, completely. I mean,
1, 2, 5-man shops.
yep. There's a few larger shops out there that are members of it, and there are other larger fabrication shops out there, obviously. But yeah, for the most part, what I see in that organization, it's, very, very small, but they do extremely high quality work.
What does it look like now, the work you guys do with Millwork Companies? Like, how does that process work? Are you guys getting involved when they're bidding scope and they're reaching out to you kind of as a part of their bid process? How have you guys found that you've evolved and started working well with millwork manufacturers?
Well, right now, yeah, for most of our clients, we're usually involved in the bid stage. So, they get a large, millwork package. It has a bunch of metals. They'll work with us, develop a scope, send it to us. We'll get them all the numbers they need for their metals, and then, carry through with that throughout the various bid stages, BE options, things like that. Which can be frustrating at times for both us and them, I'm sure. But yeah, usually we're involved right from the get go. There are a few clients that we have that they do their own bids as far as the metals, and they'll reach out when it's time to make a buy, which is great for us because it's a much quicker turnaround between our bid and getting that opportunity, and generally the chances of winning that are much better. So it's we really try to develop good relationships between our estimators and our clients' estimators. After the first few bids, they usually know what we need. We know what they need, and, start really developing those relationships where they can rely on us for that.
Right. And has that become a big percentage of the work you guys do to this day today, or do you still do a lot of the, regular food service type work?
No, we went from, so when we started measuring it and identified it was well under 5% of our work, and now it's probably closer to 50%, Travis.
Wow.
Yep. Close to 50.
Yeah, it's almost half our work now, and
Awesome.
so we were able to greatly reduce the food service work, which isn't bad work. There's just some structural problems with the market that depress the margins. It's,
Right.
For such an incredibly specialized product, it is disturbingly commoditized on the buy end. It's just nuts, because we would be doing these. A serving counter project can have as many finishes as a really high end architectural project, And our customers basically, you know, in the worst cases, we're just basically glorified oven salesmen trying to run this highly complicated architectural finishes project. It
Right.
went about as well as you would expect.
Yeah.
Not very.
And
So we were pretty happy to be able to be more selective in that market. We definitely still do food service work, but it's going to be mostly negotiated private client work where we can get at least some compensation for the extra value we offer.
now you guys have tried some other creative, like more product based endeavors, right? I remember you guys talking about it. I don't know if this is more on a serious level or kind of just hobbies, interesting things you've done, but you've done some products that you guys manufacture and just sell independently, right? Are you guys still exploring that type of stuff?
Oh yeah, they're going along fine.
Yeah. How did
Um,
that come about? Was it just another thing you chased, Travis, of like, hey, I see an opportunity here. Let's see how this works out, or how did those things come up?
Yeah, I actually wasn't as involved in that as far as like the up top bike products and things like that. That was I don't know if that was Dan or Michael here's brainchild, but yeah, they took that and ran with it.
yeah, no, up to bike was all Dan's brainchild. But stainlesstoekick.com, which might be of interest to the millwork group, that one came about because when we started the millwork area, some of the guys said, "Hey, there's a call. It gets specified stainless toe kick, but there's no place to buy it." And one of our other big areas of our market is stainless cabinets, which we do predominantly for healthcare now. So they're big tall wardrobe style cabinets with glass in the doors. So we've got this 8-inch by almost 72-inch cutout of unblemished metal that comes out of the middle. So we were like, hey, let's just turn these into stainless toe kicks and sell them. So we launched a website, stainlesstoekick.com, and lo and behold, there was some demand for that as well. So I mean, it's a pretty small percentage of our sales, but by the fact that we're using material that's already been kind of built out to another job, it's been a great addition to the company. We've expanded it now. We also offer brass toe kick too with different finishes, patina finishes, stainless baseboard, and things like that. So that's grown pretty quickly.
Okay, is that like the applied toe kicks, or that's actually the Z shape that attaches to the cabinet door, or is it both?
Correct. It's both. We've just added the Z shape. Pretty much before, it's just flat pieces of stainless that you just glue on, for people. So we sell those direct. Yeah, so that's good. So that was so easily successful, basically because there was nobody in that space. I mean, literally, there was almost no one offering it. So, and with stainlesstoekick.com, with only some minimal initial advertising, we got to #1 on Google and have managed to stay there. So based on that success, actually, Travis said you weren't involved, but I turned it over and we tried stainlessbrackets.com.
Yeah, I was involved in that.
Yeah, he was involved in that. I was like, hey, this went well. This was easy. Let's try that. Yeah. It turns out there's plenty of sources for brackets. And yeah, that was after, I don't know, probably a year of trying that. It not working out.
Yeah.
We went ahead and shut that down.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. No, yeah, the toe kicks is definitely something, because we used to come across that and it would be, hey, let's reach out to our metal vendors and ask them to do it, which if they're not geared up to do that, it's going to be super expensive for them just to one job make stainless toe kicks for you. It's just a custom fab basically at that point. So that's awesome that you guys have that as something that I assume a lot of millworkers are able to just go straight to that website and just buy them, kind of like a catalog item at that point, right?
Yep, absolutely. And we sell to a lot of kitchen and bath designers, like small kitchen and bath designers who are trying to do stuff for their clients, and a lot of homeowners too, just direct to the homeowners. So that's one of all the rest of our businesses, one of our rules is we don't work with end users, but on those very specific e-commerce businesses is the only place that we do. So.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are some of the things that, as you've started entering this new space and you've grown it to, it sounds like half of your business working specifically with architectural millwork, are there any kind of things that you've really learned or have evolved to be able to work successfully in this industry that's very different from what you guys did before?
man, there's probably something new every day. It seems like that we're learning. It, I can't think of anything specific offhand, but my takeaway with everything is always just building those relationships. That's the most important thing we can do, as well as in building those relationships is working with the estimating team on the other side. If we see something that's a very expensive material that's spec, being able to provide a value engineered option for that. At the end of the day, everybody's usually looking for the lowest price. They want to come in the most competitive. And so it's really looking for that stuff and focusing on those things with our customer that's going to benefit them, because ultimately it's going to benefit all of us.
Right. So being able to work at that bid stage, I imagine, is also probably a lot of the value that makes this business make more sense than, like you said, competing against kind of a commoditized like oven and equipment sales type thing, right? Whereas here you're able to actually work with them and say, hey, here's what they're asking for. We can actually try to get to their number and their design intent this way. And accordingly, that's a lot more value that you're able to add without a whole lot of cost for your side of things, I imagine, right?
Right.
Yep, correct. Because I mean, nothing against the architects. They're, they got the whole scope of the project they're trying to handle, but sometimes what they spec, you can understand what they're going for, but it's just absurdly expensive to produce directly for this. I mean, half inch bronze plate, awesome. Stuff's like $1,000 a square foot, man. So we can get the exact same look if we take some plywood and wrap it in 16 gauges. It'll look exactly the same and cost a tenth.
Yeah, and bend or miter fold it or something around, right? Awesome. Are there any trends you've started to see of, like, I mean, you mentioned brass, I think, or are there trends you're starting to see, or you see go in phase of certain finishes or things that have become popular that you guys are having to explore and find sources for? Or is it still just a lot of stainless?
It does seem to. Blackened seems to be coming back in. We're doing a lot more blackening than we have in the past few years. Some reduction in the stainless and brass work. Would you say that's true, Travis?
Here and there, yeah.
For a while, that was like they were really in on the brass and bronze and patina stuff. So got some more copper stuff. We got some copper drink rails, copper paneling, that whole copper speed system that we're looking at yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you guys
it does go.
Do any like corporate office interior type stuff? I mean, it seems like that stuff that's gotten a lot more. They want an industrial look or things like that versus just straight food service type jobs.
We have done some industrial stuff since the decline. Since COVID, I think the corporate spending is really, at least from our perspective, we are not bidding or seeing nearly as much of that corporate work. It's all hospitality, hotels, resorts, casinos.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we definitely, at least in the United States, seems a real estate bubble that's still on the verge of bursting, I guess.
Unfortunately, I think you're correct.
So, looking towards the future, there's two main questions I like to ask every guest, and I'm curious from you guys' perspective what you see. But the first is, in the millwork industry, kind of the greater industry as a whole, what do you guys see changing over the next 5 to 10 years?
Man, over the next 5 to 10 years, wow. I don't know. I think there's going to be some consolidation over the next few years. I certainly take stock in those economist predictions. I think we got another 12 to 18 months to run on our, we'll call these the good old days that we're living in right now. And so I think there'll be some challenges ahead with that for the industry as a whole. As far as that, I was optimistic. I would hope that we would get some more. It just seems like there's a lot of opportunities in the whole way the industry runs, just from the architects on through the whole division of specs. Like, I just had a call with one of our PMs this morning. You know, there's a series of doors in a project that get copper on them, and we're supplying copper that goes on the exact same door to two different companies, which is weird. It doesn't seem like maybe the best way to do it.
So some kind of evolution and improvement in just the way the construction industry, the way GCs handle jobs and bid out the subcontracts and stuff. And that's something I think most millworkers would welcome and would love to see. Because what you're describing is probably a large-scale job where they've subdivided the scope to different manufacturers that have the same.
Either that or mainly like on our end, the metals is just the bastard child that tries to foist it off on anyone we've built a decent business on. But I feel bad actually for all our customers because they're woodworkers. Why do they want to supply $500,000 worth of metal product?
Right. No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's something I've seen a good bit. Even when I was working in millwork, where even on regular materials like laminate, where if the scope was subdivided and we were competing with the other subs for materials from the same vendors for our scope,
exactly.
You probably have subs that are coming to you and saying, well, I need this much of this material, and another one saying, hey, I need that same material. It is designed to benefit certain parties in the industry versus others, it seems like, for sure. So on the flip side of that, what do you see not changing or staying the same over that period of time?
All that stuff we just talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a monster to change that. It's there's a lot of ingrained in there. Yeah, I mean, there's some good reasons behind the way it's done now, as far as that. So there are issues with making the wholesale changes also, but
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely, there's a lot of momentum and kind of inertia behind the way things are today. And I think hopefully there's always going to be a demand, for what we do, for the manufacturing, the needs for the things. And that's definitely what drew me to this industry very early on. I started in architecture, and I really enjoyed with manufacturing of, hey, what we're designing, what we're building is something that, like, today we're going to draw it and figure it out. Tomorrow we're going to make it, and the next day we're going to install it, and people are going to be using it. It's all very functional, necessary things that we make. Do you have any kind of parting thoughts or advice for people that are interested, maybe non-traditional millwork, but suppliers of millwork interested in getting involved in this industry? Because I think you guys are a great example of kind of another supplier, another trade that is very much integral to what we do in millwork, diving head first and really getting involved in the industry and in the trade organizations where it might not seem to other similar trades that it's as welcoming as it is, right?
If anything, if you find that niche in the market, where there's a scope hole, there's something that's, everybody's looking for but can't find, get involved with those organizations like AWI, whether it's on, national level or your regional chapter level. I can say that last spring was the first national event that I'd went to, but I'd been to plenty of the Great Lakes chapters, and just talking to those guys, knowing what they're looking for, what their pain points are, it's invaluable information to have. So I'd say that's one of the biggest things is just developing those relationships in those organizations.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you guys have been very successful at building relationships and focusing on, being solution oriented. Like, hey, how can we add value? How can we help solve problems? And that's been very key to you guys' obvious success, it seems like. So, well, I really appreciate you guys taking time out. I apologize for the technical troubles. But it's always fun chatting with you guys and connecting with you guys. I look forward to seeing you guys again at the next one.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, likewise, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to ductworksmw.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verify in Field.